Welcome to Zen and the Art of Social Media with your host, Trevor W. Goodchild, Facebook alum turned startup CEO. If you're an enterprising entrepreneur who's looking to start a business that makes a difference, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Thank you so much for joining Trevor W. Goodchild, your host of Zen and the Art of Social Media. Special guest, Bryce Vance, the mastermind behind Funnel Driven ROI, your source for social media marketing, Google, Bing ads, content marketing, chatbots being built, whatever you need taken care of for marketing. This man has got it under control and perfected. And I want to just say thank you so much for coming on today. Today, we're going to talk about some of your background, how you got into your field and marketing, and started at a lemonade stand or selling newspapers or pushing people over for their lunch money, wherever we got our start, and hustling from an early age. We talk about some of that, and I'd like to just go into maybe some of the things that you've seen people kind of make, maybe top three mistakes that you think people make when they first start out marketing, and maybe some tips on how to avoid those. But how the heck are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here once again with the Tron theme. I dig it. You've got like high class 8-bit sounds for the show, so I'm loving the vibe. Now, to answer your questions, if I remember correctly, past what I got started in, how I got into marketing, and then top 3 mistakes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd like to also say for all of our listeners that are listening on iTunes or other streaming platforms this podcast is available on, this is also available on video on my YouTube channel for Trevor W. Goodchild. Don't forget the W. Looking for that YouTube channel, you'll also see this video. So if you didn't get the reference, I currently have a Tron background in the background of the video, which says The Grid in Tron letters in the background. So that's what Bryce is referring to for all the listeners out there that are not tuning into the YouTube channel section. But yeah, how'd you get your start in marketing?
So long story short, because I know we want to be a little time sensitive to your listeners here, I was a prolific mistake maker. I've basically worked in every field except fast food. And when you have to start your life over a few times because you make poor choices through deciding to grow up fast and hard rather than, playing it safe and doing things the right way, you don't have a lot of monetary opportunities when you start something. So I studied marketing and advertising in college and high school, kind of as a computer science background, and that transferred to me working just sales jobs and getting kind of my feet wet into the industry. And then that fast forwarded to me starting my first brick and mortar business and not being able to afford a marketing team, advertising team. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. So I just dove headfirst into figuring it out, using the education that I had from school, finding friends in the industry, just really diving in. And that's transferred to me having learned from some of the biggest names in the industry. I've basically hired every marketing coach that has ever existed, have gone through hundreds of hours of personal development, training, mindset, coaching, tech, CE, continuing education is a big thing. And that ultimately led me to doing it for other people and then starting a company to do it after leaving some of the prior associations.
Nice. Yeah, I am familiar with being a programaholic, and you get sucked in, and it becomes one of those things where you just can't consume enough. But the good thing is that you have a great foundation. You got a great launching pad from that point to build your own business. I think the difference between people that stay in the what if land and those that take the leap, start their own business, enter entrepreneurial life, run their own business, and have that time and location flexibility that us entrepreneurs love, is those that rest on their laurels and don't take that risk of saying, all right, deploy. I've learned all this stuff, these thousands of hours of marketing, research, and programs that I've taken. Now let's put that into play. And you're going to scrape your knees. We're going to fall a little bit along the way. But just like with lifting weights, you got to tear muscle to re-heal stronger.
Yeah, and it's not something that, like, I'd say that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I'd give anybody listening is take that leap of faith. Take that jump, do it. Because it really boils down to, and this is going to sound pessimistic, but it's not meant to. It's meant to motivate you. You come into this world alone and you leave alone. So if you can't have faith in yourself, I mean, get to a place where you can, but that's ultimately what's going to determine it. You can learn everything there is, but if you don't implement any of it, was all that knowledge really worth your time?
Yeah, because the thing is that time is going to pass. Whether or not you're actually stepping forward into that future you want to live in, time is still passing. It's still passing, whether you're flipping burgers or living your dream. And the thing is that a lot of times what happens is that performance anxiety or even perfectionism, A+ syndrome, everything has to be perfect. Oh, I'm not going to launch. It's not perfect yet. It's not perfect. And it's like, well, that day will never come. You'll never be perfect.
And that's one of my favorite quotes. I forget who originally said it, but I've said it countless times, and to this day, it's still one of my favorites. And it's being poor is hard, being rich is hard. Choose your hard. Being fat's hard, being fit's hard. Choose your hard. Having a social life, not having a social life, they're both hard. Choose your hard. Life's not going to be easy, regardless of which path you take. You just get to choose which hard you choose.
That's a great analogy. I like that. It is a challenge no matter what we choose to do, because life is not always just going to be easy. There's always going to be obstacles no matter what path we choose, but we choose the end result and the reward that comes from that. Mm-hmm. So you're the marketing guy. You're the guy I know who is all about it. And so what would you say are three mistakes that every person getting into marketing makes, whether they're starting to work at an agency, starting their own agency, or they're a do-it-yourself business owner that doesn't want to pay a social media marketing agency, and they start trying to run ads? I've got plenty of analogies I can make, but I'm not a marketer. But what would you say?
I would say the top three.
Top three.
I'm going to give you four, because one of them kind of leads into the other.
Let's make five.
The first thing that I would say is fear. People let fear stop them from just getting out there. Not using technology because you don't understand it doesn't make it not necessary. Time has progressed. The old rules don't apply necessarily to the same effect they do today. We have hit a pivotal point in evolution as society, as people, as consumers, where a business simply doesn't meet our standard of how we want to live and engage, we won't do business with them. Toys R Us made the mistake, Blockbuster made the mistake, and neither of those companies didn't see it coming. Blockbuster had thousands of possible times to purchase Netflix, to use their model, to send information and have digital streaming. They chose not to because they wanted to stick to the old rules. It is an adapt or die. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's where growth lies. That leads into the second one. When somebody does get comfortable doing it, they apply the old rules to a new platform. That doesn't work. Not only does it put you at risk of violating terms of service, having compliance issues, but you also just don't get a result from it. Treating Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Google or YouTube like you would treat a radio broadcast or a TV commercial, they're not the same. They play by different rules, and you have to play by the rules of what platform you're on.
Yeah.
The third, omnipresence. Facebook's probably the biggest, and it also creates the biggest offenders. Let's say a business wants to come in, or a new agency professional wants to come in any regards, a professional wants to do something, right? Or even a novice wants to get their feet wet. Just putting ads in one corner of the internet does not fill all of this space. It doesn't fill the rest of the internet. If you can only be seen in one place, 90% of your market is going to have no freaking idea who you are or how to buy your service.
Great point.
So limiting your reach is another mistake. The next one would be not focusing on what matters. We all want leads. We all want opportunities. We all want more clients. But if you're focusing on the money and you're not focusing on the result or the help that your product or service can deliver, you're shooting yourself right in the foot, especially in today's economy. 50 years ago, businesses controlled their image. Today, businesses respond to how their consumers view their image. And you need to think about that when you're doing it. The last one, and this one's probably one of my biggest pet peeves, creating content is not just putting something on the internet. You have to create content for your ideal client. If you don't know who your ideal client is, spend time to figure it out. It's like that old Abe Lincoln saying, I'd rather, what is it? It has to do with two people cutting down a tree. One just goes and starts hacking at a tree for 5 hours. And I think Abe Lincoln has a famous quote where he's like, I'll sharpen my axe for 4 hours and cut for one, right? Sharpen your axe. That's obviously paraphrased. I'll have to Google the actual term. But sharpening your axe, become an expert in what you are, know your ideal client, speak to them, and create content that attracts them. Don't push people to try and do something. Don't tell somebody how to feel or how to react. Attract them to whatever your product, service, or solution is, because then it's a win-win-win. The consumer wins because they get the solution. You win because you get the business. And the entire industry wins because you're doing business ethically with integrity and morals.
Ethically with integrity and morals. Yeah, definitely want to do that because it's creating that trust, that know, like, and trust factor with your audience. And if you're just looking for a sale, you're not going to focus on that CTV. You're not going to focus on the lifetime value of a customer who can not just make one, but many purchases and be your brand ambassador, referring other people to your company. But they're not going to do that if you had this greasy car salesman approach and just like, give me your money. But creating that relationship is totally important. And I like what you said there about knowing your audience, because it reminds me of when I was working at Facebook and I ran my first ads. I wasn't really trying to make any money. I was experimenting around with it, but it revealed to me one of the most common misconceptions people have. I'll just run some ads, money will pour in. Well, not really. You got to know who your audience is and speak to them. It's not just your voice, unless you're one of those guys who's completely bald and you're not just the president of the hair club for men. You're a member. And your target demographic. Most of the time, you want to find and identify that voice. And that's very important for being effective in marketing. Those are great tips. Those very, very well put together. And where can people reach you if they want to hire your services?
The easiest place right now is if you think that you're a candidate and you want to find out if we can help you grow or get started or scale, go to workwithfdllc.com. Once again, www.workwithfdllc.com. There's a quick survey and just a form to fill out so that we can schedule a time to talk. But if you just want to take a look around, I've got a freebie for your audience if you're cool with me giving that away.
Yeah.
So go to www.drivenroi.com, fill out the form. We're not going to sell you anything. Nobody's going to call you. It's just going to put a request in so that we can send you a free PDF called The One Funnel to Rule Them All and the 3 core funnels that every business needs to scale. It is a walkthrough from 0 to 100 so you can set up your own client acquisition and lead system today. And then if you just want to connect, get to know me a little bit, follow me around, go to linktreebryce.phonesites.com. That's linktreebryce.phonesites.com.
Awesome. Really appreciate you being on the podcast, Zen and the Art of Social Media. It's a crazy year. So we can't not address this, all right? Just because, while we may work together, I would like to consider us friends, even if we're virtual friends for now. Until you fly me out to your state, unnamed, in case people are stalking you, to do some work with you, like our mutual friend Trey did. when I can help you with something on my expertise level or whatever. For now, we're virtual. Let's just talk for a second. Let's just talk for a second. Aside from marketing, or maybe a little bit, let's just talk for a second about the craziness of 2020, because this is Jack Nicholson, One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest level.
This is one of my favorite topics this year. This year has been so crazy that the CIA and FBI and DOJ have both confirmed alien technology and that aliens 99.99% exist and that they have technology that is otherworldly in dossiers and released documents, and confirmed that multiple dimensions are real and that transportation and like bilateral, like some crazy fucking terms where like we can project our consciousness out of this dimension exists, and that they've been testing it since the 70s and nobody fucking cared. Nobody cared that the two biggest scientific discoveries in recorded human history happened. Nobody cared.
Yeah, you gotta keep the Kardashians, but it's I don't know about all that. I haven't looked into that specifically, but yeah, 2020 is a crazy year.
I mean, we just found water on the moon.
Did we?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We need to start creating like a product that is based on like moon water. All right.
I think the Space Force might do that.
Yeah. Let's link up. I mean, I am in Austin, Texas. Houston is not that far apart, and it's not a problem, Houston. Some marketers here to help you out. I also want to address one thing that I've addressed before, but it's something that keeps coming up for me. As someone that works in policy, a lot of what I do is similar to what an attorney does that focuses on laws. I was pre-law for a little bit at University of Texas, where I graduated from, and I have studied law. I'm not a lawyer. It interests me, but I think what is fascinating to me when I'm studying the kind of trends of what's going on, we have all this crazy stuff that's happening in tech and marketing and laws, like big tech. We got Microsoft, we got Facebook, we got Google, all getting pulled up in Amazon before Congress and being made to be held accountable for their platform. That's never happened before. And a lot of the talk is, well, the victims of the conspiracy. But I can, if it's on some level, like I feel that, but on other levels, I'm like, what about the people that make their living?
Here's why I disagree with that almost entirely. Now, I have to preface this. There are certain circumstances where just blatant abuse or manipulation of the law violates privacy. Okay? Yeah. We've seen that with what happened with Snowden, right?
Yeah.
There are cases where that's the case. But in the case of these tech companies, Google, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Microsoft, they're not violating your privacy. You voluntarily sold it to them. Have some personal fucking responsibility. Okay.
Clicks on the pop-up. Well, so like I am of like multiple perspectives on this, right? Because I feel it is too easy to have your data mined and resold to private people. TikTok is a great example of what can go wrong with that. There's multiple lawsuits about them reselling information they took from children under the age of 13, physical locations, email addresses. Stuff is heinous. People don't realize.
Absolutely, and that's why I prefaced with there are cases where that doesn't follow true, right? I just think we've gotten into a space in society where personal responsibility doesn't seem to be a thing, right? Like to some degree, for God's sakes, the first time Facebook got drug into Congress, right? The panel that the United States government and the world has put in place to monitor and regulate tech is full of people older than sliced bread that don't understand how the fucking internet works. You cannot judge something you don't understand. And as a consumer, I use this stuff too.
Right.
Yes, it can be abused, but you cannot blame Facebook or Microsoft or Google for something that you voluntarily accepted and sold with your choice.
So I am in the middle, right? I agree with you somewhat. And this is where I'm at. I feel like, yes, I agree that people do volunteer their information. I feel how easily people can be manipulated by a lot of this data capture, data mining, and all that stuff. Yeah, there's the personal responsibility. I do feel it's a little too easy these days for that to, get your data.
Well,
but here's the point that I was initially making. Now, this is where it gets my goat, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. All right, all this kind of playing victim of, wow, I am so sad that these consumers have their data taken, for retargeting ads because they clicked on a vacuum cleaner on Facebook on an ad, then they see it in 3 different places after that, and that's such a crime. And I'm like, well,
no, that creates a better user experience.
Right. Rather than retarget you with stuff you don't want.
As a consumer, what would you rather have? Somebody just blatantly advertise shit you don't care about to you, the traditional spaghetti marketing tactic of television, or would you rather be able to tell that TV network what you like, what you dislike, when you like it, how you like it, if you're interested in purchasing it, and it be able to custom tailor an experience for you based on what you told it?
Well, and so for those that may not be into marketing, and maybe you're a business owner that just wants Facebook hacks, or you just enjoy the sound of my melodic, hypnotic voice, the spaghetti approach is throwing it against the wall, see what sticks. It's just doing blasts. It's old school marketing on TV without customization of that. The more time has passed on, we see the more people not only convert higher for customized ads, they come to expect it. They come to get angry when the autocomplete does not complete the sentence they were thinking of typing when they're beginning to search for something to buy. But this is where I have a big problem is these shutdowns on different aspects of what we can do to target people, like the real estate lawsuit last year against Facebook by the Housing Authority that took away real estate ads' ability to use income and zip code to target people with ads. That really upset me because of the fact, and I'm not a real estate guy. I don't even run ads for people in real estate most of the time. But the fact is, I know plenty of people in real estate, and that has actually harmed their business. And they have families. They have to put food on the table. They're trying to make a living, right? And they're trying to bring that American dream, chicken in every pot, car in every garage, apple pie, that everyone loves, consumes, and supports. But they can't do that as well now to bring that dream house to you, because now their ability to market their houses to you on Facebook is restricted in the name of civil rights. Like this, I totally.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me ask a question first. Do I have to be careful with your audience on like how I talk?
I generally don't curse a lot. I can edit out what you curse. It isn't.
I'm not talking about cursing. I just mean like the general. Like, can I be political for a second?
I don't advocate either side.
Okay, so I'll be pretty centrist here.
Okay.
But just to give kind of a scope on both sides, regardless of where you stand on politics, this isn't a political statement. I'm just using politics as an example. That same experience has happened in every single one of our states over 200 years that this country's been here. Democrats have been pushing for more democratic laws that are typically more liberal. Republicans have been pushing for more Republican-style laws that are typically more conservative. And then unilaterally, whether you're centrist, liberal, unidentified, Republican, doesn't matter where you're at, we all have to live with that experience. The reason why I ask if I could be a little political is, and this isn't pointing fingers at anybody or any particular party, but just a state. California has gone down that same road so long that they've actually created a max exodus of their fundamentally economically sound individuals, their citizens, who no longer want to be Californians because it's created an experience that isn't sustainable. It's not fun economically. It's not sustainable economically. It's putting pressure where pressure isn't due, to the point where California's only recourse is they're trying to push legislation so that they can tax people leaving the state for an additional 10 years so they don't lose the revenue.
Wow.
It's that's the circumstance. Yeah, it's the same thing. Tech is following human nature, and human nature is let's fuck with it until we break it and then try and piece it back together.
I've been following what's going on in California, thanks to JP Spears. But he lives in Austin, by the way. I've been following all this stuff that's been going on, and California is shooting itself in the foot right now. It is insane self-destruct mode. And
but that's the same thing that's occurring with technology regulations.
Right. They were trying to tax people up that were in the top earners up to 50% of their income. Guess what their deficit is in their budget after mass exodus from California? 50%. What a coincidence. Who's doing this?
But that's why I brought that up. The same thing California did, tried to please its citizens. It tried to appease their feelings over what's best for an economic standing. Marketing's doing the same thing. It's trying to appease its audience without realizing that it's dramatically hurting the very thing that keeps it alive. At some degree, you have to take a look at the bigger picture and long-term capabilities, just as with laws. The places that are experiencing the highest crime rates now are the very places where they defunded a lot of the police. They didn't look at the long-term effects. We have to unilaterally as people, not as race or towns or states, as just one human species, stop letting the feelings of somebody outweigh the long-term legalities and long-term protections and freedoms that exist, whether that be tech or laws.
Right. So I don't want to get too far off course, but I do agree on the level that I think people do not realize what they're doing to hurt the economy when they limit and hurt businesses that provide a lot bigger of a sustainability for a town, a city, and a state. You know, one of the things we can talk about, for instance, is how Texas has responded to COVID. And while there has definitely been a rise in cases here, and we're not going to touch that you know, there's a whole other discussion on all that, but just the ability of giving businesses themselves the freedom to regulate how much they open to 50% capacity versus California shutting everything down. Melbourne, Australia, police state 2 hours outside a day for each other's citizens, right? It's not just about personal freedom and civil liberties. It's also about sustainability of keeping the market thriving, alive, and going, which relates to depression, suicide rates, abuse in the home. It's interconnected. When we have a thriving economy and we have a business that's intact, we've managed to do that more in Texas and other states like California, for instance. And I've seen the results firsthand looking at both states, and I'm like, wow, like the level of like self-care, right, that I'm seeing that is not being supported in California versus here in Texas. It's insane. And so that bothers me because I feel it's narrow-sighted. It's short-sighted. We're not but the policymakers, they're not putting on their glasses to see more clearly the ramifications of doing stuff like the lawsuit that got the targeting eliminated from Facebook for income brackets and, zip codes. Like, if I'm in a trailer park, do I want to see an ad for a McMansion? Probably not. It's a mismatch for the product and the audience. Why would they encourage something like that? All that does is create frustration. It doesn't solve any problem for anyone. Like, it's just
it's that whole concept that somebody's feelings outweigh what's best for longevity, profitability, economic capabilities, or the law. And we've created it ourselves. Yes, your feelings matter. They always will. But there's zero chance that an economy, a state, a city, a town, a fucking block, everybody's not going to agree. That's the beauty of what makes us different as individuals, right? And there's unfortunately no way for tech to follow that same train of thought. It's either appease its audience or risk losing it, or don't appease its audience and risk losing it. Same way with laws or any other regulations.
Yeah.
It's a problem we've created, and it's a problem we can't get out of because we keep creating it.
I feel there should be more diversity in the kind of mercantile, monopolistic capitalism that pervades America. There isn't really a free market in the same way that there should be in a lot of ways. But at the same time, the solution to that isn't necessarily divesting it into communal ownership from everyone else.
But I would wholeheartedly disagree with the beginning of your statement, because the true definition of pure capitalism is the ability that the market chooses the winner. That's what we have. The market chooses the winner. The market chooses the product, the solution, the spend, the capability, the purchase. That's the definition of free market.
But when the winner becomes so rich, it buys up all the land that any other competitors could possibly build stores on to compete against. That's where it becomes like a fiefdom, and it becomes a little more.
But does it? because we have this conversation repeatedly through history. Does it? And I ask that because the last time we were in a recession, 10 years ago, the 10 largest tech companies of this decade started.
Yeah.
They started from nothing. Mm-hmm. The founders of Square, Stripe, Gravity Payments started with less money than you currently have in your pocket, and they're 10 of the largest tech companies in less than 10 years. The market chose that. The people that they were competing against, the trillion-dollar conglomerates that they came across, they tried to. The free market's what allowed that to happen.
This is a longer conversation this podcast can cover. It's a good topic. It's a good topic because we can draw back onto bailouts from the 2008 recession, from Lehman Brothers overestimating stocks and subprime mortgages, and was it really capitalism to bail out the banks, and the effect that had on the economy, and so on and so forth. There's a lot to go into there, and it's fun to talk about. But I just wanted to talk about just the craziness of 2020. And part of that craziness is seeing in the aftermath of lawsuits like the one that took away those targeting capabilities on Facebook, on how that affects real estate, on how that affects people that really have to make their living. And I think that we're in this very kind of one narrative conversation about advertising and targeting and stuff like that. We're not really looking at it from all perspectives, from the fact that these are established industries from way back in the day, from Eugene Schwartz and breakthrough advertising and Robert Bly and copywriting from back in the day, Dan Kennedy, all the greats up to, Neil Patel and Seth Godin today, that this is how they make their living and how many thousands and thousands of other people make their living. Advertisers are people too. And they
100%.
They also should not be limited to an extent, in an extreme way that just shuts down everything. I feel there should be a conversation, a discussion on what is a middle ground, instead of let's shut it off completely. Ads are bad. It's like, well, that's realistic. I don't really get it.
I agree with that, but I do have to say that I think the way that things are going now really separates the herd, right? And And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean it separates the real from the pretend. It separates the wannabe gurus from people who are actively in the industry. Because when Facebook changed their real estate policy, we didn't skip a beat. Our clients didn't lose even 0.5% of their revenue or their results because we already knew how to handle that situation. We already knew that that could happen. We already knew what steps to take. So I think it's important that change is inevitable, and the people that are going to prove their merit are the people that are prepared for the change. We should not make something so easy with such a small entry barrier that it doesn't take effort to do.
Like participation trophies. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, change in life is inevitable, except from vending machines. And on that note, I'll wrap up this podcast mainly because I have to do all the editing. But Bryce, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And for our listeners that don't know, my background is a Facebook policy specialist at Facebook's Disapproving Your Ad. And if you don't know why, you can reach out to me at trevorwgoodchild.com. Click on Get Results and schedule a time to talk. You can reach out to Bryce at
linktreebryce.phonesites.com for personal message, or if you want to learn more about how we can help you thrive, not just survive, go to www.workwithfdllc.com.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for coming on to Zen and the Art of Social Media.
Thanks for having me.